A racist luxury store manager humiliates a black woman because he thinks that she cannot afford to shop at his expensive store. The next day, he is shocked to see the new owner. Vanessa Taylor stepped through the glass doors of La Belle Maison, her entrance almost unnoticed by the staff bustling around the luxury boutique. The store, with its marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and elegantly displayed high-end merchandise, exuded opulence. Vanessa, dressed in a simple navy blue dress and flats, seemed out of place among the sleek, designer-clad clientele browsing the store's wares. She moved with quiet confidence, her eyes scanning the displays. Her pace was unhurried, yet there was a purpose in her step. She knew exactly what she was looking for, a rare, limited edition handbag for her mother's upcoming birthday. Vanessa had done her research. She knew the bag was in stock, and she intended to buy it today. As she approached the main counter, she noticed a group of sales associates attending to a well-dressed couple, their attentiveness bordering on obsequious. One man stood apart, observing the scene with a practiced eye. Richard Adams, the store manager, prided himself on his ability to assess customers at a glance. He noticed Vanessa but quickly dismissed her from his mind. Her attire, understated and devoid of logos, didn't fit his image of someone who could afford La Belle Maison's offerings. Vanessa reached the counter and waited. The associate behind the register, a young woman in a crisp white blouse, didn't acknowledge her. She was too busy rearranging a display of designer wallets. Vanessa cleared her throat politely. The associate looked up, her expression blank. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone flat, as if she doubted there was much she could do. "Yes," Vanessa replied calmly, her voice even. "I'm interested in purchasing the limited edition Caldera handbag. I believe you have it in stock?" The associate hesitated, her eyes flicking over Vanessa's simple dress. Before she could respond, Richard Adams stepped forward, his attention finally drawn to the interaction. His gaze was cool, appraising Vanessa from head to toe with barely concealed disdain. "I'm sorry," Richard interjected smoothly, taking control of the conversation. "The Caldera is quite an exclusive piece. Are you sure that's what you're looking for?" Vanessa met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "Yes, I'm sure," she replied. "I'd like to see it, please." Richard's lips pressed into a thin line. "That particular item is quite expensive," he said, his tone carefully measured. "Perhaps you'd like to look at something more suitable?" He gestured towards a section of the store where the less expensive items were displayed. Vanessa didn't waver. "I'm aware of the price. I'd still like to see it." Richard hesitated, a flicker of irritation crossing his features. He wasn't accustomed to being challenged, especially not by someone he deemed unworthy of the store's elite offerings. But there was something in Vanessa's calm demeanor that made him pause. He glanced over at the associate, who was now watching the exchange with a mixture of curiosity and unease. "Very well," Richard said finally, his tone clipped. "I'll retrieve it for you." He turned and disappeared into the back room, leaving Vanessa standing alone at the counter. The associate quickly resumed her work, avoiding eye contact. Vanessa's gaze remained steady, her expression betraying no hint of the frustration or anger she might have felt. She had encountered this kind of treatment before, and she knew how to handle it, with patience and persistence. A few moments later, Richard returned, holding the handbag. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, smooth leather, intricate stitching, and a design that was both elegant and timeless. He placed it on the counter with a certain reluctance, as if still doubting the wisdom of showing it to Vanessa. "There it is," he said, his voice laced with condescension. "The Caldera." Vanessa reached out, gently running her fingers over the leather. It was exactly what she had expected. Perfect. She looked up at Richard, who was watching her with an expression of thinly veiled skepticism. "I'll take it," Vanessa said simply. Richard blinked, momentarily taken aback. He had been prepared for her to balk at the price, to walk away with some excuse about needing to think it over. Instead, she was buying it without hesitation. He quickly recovered, his professional mask slipping back into place. "Of course," he said, forcing a tight smile. "If you'll just come this way, we can complete the transaction." Vanessa nodded and followed him to the register. The associate, still avoiding her gaze, rang up the purchase. Richard stood nearby, his posture rigid, as if the entire process were an affront to him personally. Vanessa handed over her credit card, her movements deliberate and controlled. The associate swiped it, her hands trembling slightly. The transaction went through without a hitch. "Thank you," Vanessa said as she took the bag and receipt, Her tone was polite but distant, giving nothing away. Richard offered a stiff nod, his face a mask of professionalism, but the tension in his posture was clear. Vanessa turned and walked out of the store, her steps measured and unhurried. As the glass doors closed behind her, Richard exhaled slowly, a scowl darkening his features. He had underestimated her, but the significance of that mistake was something he would not fully understand until later. Vanessa didn't allow the rudeness she had just encountered to shake her. Instead, she focused on the satisfaction of securing the perfect gift. The Caldera handbag nestled in her hands was a testament to her persistence. However, as she glanced back at the store, a sense of unfinished business gnawed at her. Richard Adams, with his thinly veiled contempt, had made an impression, one that Vanessa knew she could not let slide. She walked back inside, her stride purposeful, eyes fixed on the display cases. Richard was at the far end of the store, speaking with another customer, his tone ingratiatingly polite, a stark contrast to how he had addressed her earlier. Vanessa's re-entry didn't go unnoticed. Richard's eyes flicked towards her, and his expression hardened momentarily before he schooled his features into a neutral mask. Vanessa approached the display of jewelry, her gaze lingering on a stunning diamond necklace that sparkled under the soft lights. The price tag was tucked discreetly behind, but Vanessa had an eye for such things. She knew it was one of the most expensive pieces in the store. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice carrying across the showroom. Richard's head snapped up and he hesitated before excusing himself from the other customer. He made his way over to Vanessa, his steps slow, as if each one were a deliberate choice. "Yes, ma'am?" Richard's tone was careful, but the coldness from earlier was still there, just beneath the surface. Vanessa met his gaze evenly. "I'd like to see this necklace," she said, her voice steady, betraying nothing of the challenge she was laying down. Richard's eyes narrowed slightly. "The Deneuve diamond?" he asked, the name of the piece rolling off his tongue with practiced ease. "It's quite exquisite, isn't it?" "It is," Vanessa agreed, keeping her tone neutral. "I'd like to try it on." Richard hesitated, the muscles in his jaw tensing. "The Deneuve is part of a limited collection," he said, as if explaining something to a child. "It's very expensive." Vanessa tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. "I understand. I still want to see it." For a moment there was silence between them, thick with unspoken words. Richard's eyes searched Vanessa's face, looking for something, perhaps doubt, perhaps hesitation, but finding nothing but calm resolve. Finally, he nodded curtly and unlocked the display case. He lifted the necklace out carefully, holding it as if it were the crown jewels, his fingers lingering on the diamonds. "This piece is not just about the stones," he said, his tone softening as he slipped into his role as a connoisseur. "It's about the craftsmanship, the history. The Deneuve family has been in the business for generations. This necklace, it's an investment, something to be passed down through the generations." Vanessa didn't respond immediately, her eyes on the necklace. She could sense Richard's subtle shift. Now that he was in his element, his condescension had taken on a veneer of professionalism. He was trying to impress her with his knowledge, assuming she was unfamiliar with such luxury. It was a mistake she intended to correct. Richard stepped behind her, placing the necklace around her neck with meticulous care. Vanessa looked at her reflection in the mirror, admiring how the diamonds caught the light. The necklace was undeniably beautiful, but the sparkle was dimmed by the shadow of Richard's attitude. "It's lovely," Vanessa said, turning her head slightly to see how the diamonds moved with her. "But the price—" Richard stiffened, waiting for the inevitable retreat. He had seen it before. Customers who were dazzled by the store's offerings but balked when it came to paying the price. "The price," Vanessa continued, her tone smooth, "is precisely what I'd expect for a piece of this quality." Richard blinked, the certainty in his expression faltering. "Of course," he murmured, quickly regaining his composure. "As I said, it's an investment. A piece like this—" "I'll take it," Vanessa interrupted, her voice firm. Richard's words died in his throat. He stared at her, struggling to mask his surprise. "You'll take it?" he repeated, as if he hadn't heard her correctly. "Yes," Vanessa said, meeting his gaze in the mirror. "I'll take the necklace. You can add it to my purchase." For a moment, Richard said nothing. He simply stared at Vanessa's reflection, his thoughts racing behind his eyes. The mask of professionalism he wore so carefully was slipping, and Vanessa could see the confusion, the frustration, and, finally, the realization dawning on him. "Very well," he said at last, his voice tight. He removed the necklace from her neck with less care than he had shown before and placed it back in its case. "I'll prepare the receipt." Vanessa followed him back to the register, the silence between them thick with unspoken tension. The associate from earlier was there, her eyes wide as she watched Richard input the details of the sale. Vanessa handed over her card without a word, and the transaction was processed without incident. "Thank you for your purchase," Richard said, the words forced, as he handed her the receipt. Vanessa took it, her eyes never leaving his. "You're welcome," she replied, her tone polite, but with an edge that wasn't there before. "Have a good day, Mr. Adams." Richard stiffened slightly at the mention of his name, his eyes narrowing as he watched Vanessa turn and leave the store once more. The glass doors closed behind her, and Richard was left standing there, the weight of the encounter settling heavily on his shoulders. This time Vanessa didn't look back. The satisfaction of the purchase was tinged with something more, a determination that was now burning brightly within her. She had confronted Richard, and though the exchange had been brief, it had given her all the confirmation she needed. This was far from over. Vanessa's footsteps echoed across the marble floor as she left La Belle Maison for the second time that day, the heavy velvet bag holding her purchases swinging lightly in her hand. The crisp autumn air greeted her as she stepped outside, a sharp contrast to the store's stifling atmosphere. She paused on the sidewalk, her thoughts churning. Her mother's birthday gift was secure, but the satisfaction that usually accompanied a successful purchase was absent. Instead, a quiet, simmering anger had taken its place. Richard's condescension, his barely disguised prejudice, it wasn't something she could let slide. Vanessa wasn't one to make impulsive decisions, but in that moment, she made a vow to herself. This was more than just a handbag or a necklace. This was about respect. Respect she intended to claim not just for herself, but for anyone who walked into that store and was judged by their appearance. As Vanessa reached into her purse to retrieve her phone, she felt a presence behind her. She turned to see her assistant, Lisa Thompson, approaching with quick, efficient steps. Lisa was in her late 20s, with sharp eyes and an even sharper wit. Her dark hair was pulled back into a sleek ponytail, and she wore a tailored suit that spoke of both professionalism and style. "Vanessa," Lisa greeted her, slightly out of breath. "I just got your text. Did everything go okay in there?" Vanessa gave her a small, tight smile. "Let's just say it was an enlightening experience." Lisa's eyes narrowed in concern. "What happened?" Vanessa glanced back at the store, its grand facade gleaming in the afternoon sun. "The manager, Richard Adams, made it very clear that he didn't think I belonged in there. He was rude, condescending, and frankly a bit of a bigot." Lisa's expression darkened. "Are you serious? Did you report him to corporate?" Vanessa shook her head. "No, I didn't. But I have something else in mind." Lisa raised an eyebrow, waiting for her to continue. "I'm going to buy the store," Vanessa said calmly. Lisa's mouth dropped open, a rare moment of surprise crossing her usually composed features. "Buy the store?" she repeated, her voice slightly higher than usual. "You mean La Belle Maison? That's not just some local boutique, Vanessa. That's a major investment." "I'm aware," Vanessa replied, her tone matter-of-fact. "But I think it's time for a change in management, don't you?" Lisa stared at her for a long moment, processing the statement. Then a slow smile spread across her face, a glint of admiration in her eyes. "You're serious about this?" "Absolutely," Vanessa confirmed. "I've been considering expanding my portfolio into retail for a while now. This just gives me the perfect reason to do it. Besides, if Richard Adams treats me that way, imagine how he must treat others who walk through those doors." Lisa nodded, her mind already working through the logistics. "You'll have to move quickly if you want to keep this under wraps. The last thing we need is for someone to catch wind of your intentions before we're ready." "I know," Vanessa said. "That's why I want to set up a meeting with the owner as soon as possible." "Can you make that happen?" Lisa nodded again, already pulling out her phone. "I'll get in touch with their corporate office and arrange something. We should be able to get a meeting by the end of the week." "Good," Vanessa said, her eyes narrowing as she glanced back at the store one last time. "The sooner we get started, the better." As Lisa walked away, Vanessa stood there for a moment, the plan crystallizing in her mind. She had always been a strategist, someone who saw opportunities where others saw obstacles. This was no different. Richard Adams had underestimated her, but that was his mistake. She was going to make sure it was his last. A few days later, Vanessa found herself seated in a sleek, modern conference room in the heart of the city's financial district. The walls were lined with abstract art, and a large window provided a panoramic view of the skyline. Across from her sat Charles Bennett, the CEO of La Belle Maison, a man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and a polished demeanor that spoke of years in high-end retail. Bennett's eyes were sharp, assessing her as they exchanged pleasantries. Vanessa knew that he was trying to size her up, to determine her intentions. She had come to the meeting dressed in a tailored suit that exuded both power and elegance, a clear signal that she meant business. "So, Miss Taylor," Bennett began, folding his hands on the table in front of him, "I must admit, I was surprised when I received your request for a meeting. I understand you're interested in purchasing one of our stores." "Yes," Vanessa replied, her tone measured. "I'm particularly interested in acquiring your flagship location downtown." Bennett's eyebrows lifted slightly. "The flagship? That's quite an ambitious move. May I ask what prompted your interest?" Vanessa didn't hesitate. "I see potential in the store," she said simply. "Potential that I believe isn't being fully realized under the current management. I think I can bring something new to the table." Bennett leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "Our current management team is highly experienced," he pointed out. "Richard Adams, the store manager, has been with us for over a decade." "I'm aware of Mr. Adams's tenure," Vanessa said, her tone cool. "However, I believe that a fresh perspective is needed, one that aligns with the values of today's diverse and evolving consumer base." There was a brief silence as Bennett studied her, his expression unreadable. Vanessa met his gaze evenly, knowing that this was the moment where her resolve would either win him over or send him walking away. Finally, Bennett nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You're clearly someone who knows what they want, Ms. Taylor. I appreciate that. Let's discuss the details." The rest of the meeting was spent going over the financials, the logistics of the sale, and the transition of ownership. Vanessa was thorough, asking pointed questions and making it clear that she was not just a buyer, but an active participant in the future of the store. By the time they shook hands, Bennett was no longer just considering the offer. He was committed. As Vanessa left the conference room, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The first step had been taken. She had secured the purchase, and soon La Belle Maison would be hers. But the work was far from over. Richard Adams had no idea what was coming, but Vanessa knew exactly what she was going to do. She wasn't just buying a store, she was buying a future where respect, dignity, and equality were not just words but principles that would define the very essence of La Belle Maison. And it all started with her. Vanessa stood in front of the full-length mirror in her penthouse, adjusting the cufflinks on her crisp white blouse. The morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow across the room. Her reflection stared back at her, calm and composed. But beneath that serene exterior, a storm was brewing. Today was the day. The ink on the purchase agreement was barely dry, but Vanessa had wasted no time. She knew that every moment counted, and she wanted to make it clear that changes were coming to La Belle Maison. She slipped into a tailored navy blazer, the fabric fitting perfectly over her shoulders, and smoothed down her skirt. Lisa had arranged everything for the announcement. A brief meeting with the staff, scheduled for when the store was closed to customers. It would be a simple, straightforward affair, but Vanessa knew that the impact would be anything but. As she picked up her handbag, the very same Caldera she had purchased days ago, Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from Lisa, confirming that everything was ready. Vanessa sent a quick reply, then took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The drive to La Belle Maison was short, but Vanessa used the time to review her plan. The store, with its imposing facade and luxurious interior, had been a symbol of exclusivity and elitism for far too long. Today, that would begin to change. When she arrived, the store was quiet, its usual buzz of activity subdued. The staff had been informed of the meeting, though they had no idea what was about to be announced. Vanessa could sense the undercurrent of curiosity and unease as she walked through the door. Richard Adams was the first to greet her, his expression as unreadable as ever. He had no reason to suspect anything, and Vanessa had deliberately kept her intentions under wraps until now. She offered him a polite smile, which he returned with a nod. "Good morning, Mr. Adams," Vanessa said, her tone neutral. "Good morning, Ms. Taylor," Richard replied, his voice courteous but distant. "We've gathered the staff in the main showroom, as requested." "Thank you," Vanessa said. Shall we? Richard led the way and Vanessa followed, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor. As they approached the main showroom, she could hear the murmur of voices, staff members whispering to each other, speculating about the purpose of the meeting. When they entered the room, the conversations fell silent. Vanessa's gaze swept over the assembled employees, taking in their faces. There were about 20 of them, from sales associates to department managers, all dressed impeccably, their expressions ranging from curiosity to mild apprehension. Vanessa stepped forward, positioning herself at the front of the room. Richard stood slightly to the side, his posture straight and formal, as if he were presiding over a routine staff briefing. Vanessa could tell he was trying to project authority, but today, that role belonged to her. "Good morning, everyone," Vanessa began, her voice carrying easily across the room. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. The staff's attention was focused entirely on her, their anticipation palpable. "I know you're all wondering why we've called this meeting," Vanessa continued, her tone steady. "I won't keep you in suspense any longer. I'm here today to introduce myself formally as the new owner of La Belle Maison." The announcement landed like a thunderclap. For a moment, there was stunned silence, the staff exchanging wide-eyed glances. Richard's reaction was immediate, a sharp intake of breath, his eyes widening in disbelief. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. Vanessa didn't give him a chance to recover. She maintained her composure, her gaze sweeping the room, meeting the eyes of each staff member. "As the new owner, I have a vision for this store," she continued, "a vision that involves some significant changes in how we operate, how we treat our customers, and how we represent ourselves to the world." Richard finally found his voice, though it came out strained. "Ms. Taylor," he began, I wasn't aware that the store was for sale." Vanessa turned to him, her expression unreadable. "It was a private transaction, Mr. Adams," she said calmly. "The details were finalized only recently." Richard blinked, still processing the information. He looked around the room, his confidence wavering for the first time. The staff were watching him, their expressions a mix of shock and confusion. Vanessa could see the power dynamics shifting in real time. "I see," Richard murmured, his tone uncertain. "And what exactly are these changes you mentioned?" Vanessa didn't miss a beat. "The first change," she said, her voice firm, "is in our approach to customer service. This store has built a reputation for exclusivity, but in doing so, it has also cultivated an environment that can be unwelcoming, even hostile, to certain customers. That ends today." The staff exchanged nervous glances, clearly aware of what she was referring to. Richard's face tightened, but he said nothing. "We will treat every customer with respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance, background, or perceived status," Vanessa continued, her gaze hardening. "This is not just a mandate, it's a non-negotiable policy. Anyone who cannot adhere to this standard will not have a place in this store." The air in the room grew tense, the weight of Vanessa's words pressing down on everyone present. Richard's face had gone pale, his usual smug demeanor replaced by something akin to fear. "And that brings me to the second change," Vanessa said, turning to face Richard directly. "Effective immediately, Mr. Adams, you are relieved of your duties as store manager." The shock on Richard's face was unmistakable. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. The staff looked on in stunned silence, their expressions ranging from surprise to barely concealed satisfaction. It was clear that Richard's behavior had not gone unnoticed by those who worked under him. "You can collect your things and leave by the end of the day," Vanessa said, her tone final. "Lisa will handle the formalities and arrange for your exit package." Richard finally found his voice, though it was shaky. "Miss Taylor, I don't understand. I've been with this company for over a decade, I've always upheld the standards of—" "The standards you've upheld are precisely the problem, Mr. Adams," Vanessa interrupted, her voice cutting through his protests. "Your conduct has been unprofessional and discriminatory, and it has no place in the future of this store." Richard stared at her, his face flushed with a mix of anger and humiliation. Vanessa held his gaze, unflinching, until he finally looked away. He nodded stiffly, his hands clenching at his sides. I understand," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Good," Vanessa said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "You have until the end of the day. With that, Richard turned and walked out of the room, his shoulders hunched in defeat. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving the rest of the staff in stunned silence. Vanessa took a deep breath, then turned back to the employees, her expression softening. "I know this is a lot to take in," she said gently, "but I want you all to understand that these changes are for the better. La Belle Maison will become a place where everyone, customers and employees alike, feels valued and respected." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I'll be meeting with each of you individually over the next few days to discuss your roles and how we can move forward together. I'm confident that, with your help, we can make La Belle Maison a shining example of excellence in every way." The staff began to relax, some nodding in agreement, others offering tentative smiles. Vanessa could see the hope and uncertainty in their eyes, and she knew that she had a lot of work ahead of her to win their trust. "Thank you for your time," Vanessa said, giving them a warm smile. "I look forward to working with all of you." The staff slowly began to disperse, murmuring amongst themselves as they left the room. Vanessa watched them go, a sense of calm settling over her. She had made her move, and it had been a decisive one. There was no turning back now. Lisa approached her, a satisfied smile on her face. "That was impressive," she said quietly. "You handled it perfectly." "Thank you," Vanessa replied, her voice soft. "But this is just the beginning. We have a lot of work to do." "I know," Lisa said with a nod, "but I have a feeling this is going to be the start of something great." Vanessa allowed herself a small smile, the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. "I hope so, Lisa," she said. "I really do." With that, Vanessa turned and walked out of the showroom, her mind already racing with plans for the future. She had taken the first step, but the road ahead was long. Still, she was ready. She had made a promise to herself, and she intended to keep it. This was her store now, and she was going to make sure it became a place of dignity, respect, and excellence. A place where everyone, regardless of who they were, felt like they belonged. Vanessa stood in her office at the back of La Belle Maison, the sleek, modern space a sharp contrast to the store's opulent showroom. The walls were adorned with minimalist art, and a large glass desk dominated the room, its surface meticulously organized. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the polished floor. It was the first day under her leadership, and Vanessa could feel the weight of it pressing down on her. The announcement had been made, and Richard Adams was gone. Now it was time to start implementing the changes she had promised. Lisa walked into the office, a tablet in hand, her expression focused. "The department managers are ready for the morning briefing," she said. "They're waiting in the conference room." Vanessa nodded, her mind already running through the agenda. "Let's not keep them waiting." They left the office and headed to the conference room, where the department managers were gathered around a long table. As Vanessa entered, the conversation stopped, and all eyes turned to her. She could sense the mix of emotions in the room: curiosity, uncertainty, and perhaps a little apprehension. "Good morning, everyone," Vanessa began, taking her place at the head of the table. "Thank you for being here on time." The managers responded with polite greetings, their faces attentive but guarded. Vanessa knew that they were still processing the events of the previous day. Richard Adams had been a fixture in the store for years, and his abrupt departure had undoubtedly left a void. Vanessa glanced around the table, taking in the faces of the managers. Some she recognized from her previous visits as a customer. Others were new to her. They represented various departments: fashion, accessories, beauty, and more. Each of them played a crucial role in the store's operations, and she needed them on board if her vision was going to succeed. "I'm sure yesterday's announcement came as a surprise to all of you," Vanessa continued, her tone calm but firm. "But I want to assure you that these changes are necessary. La Belle Maison has a long history of excellence, but we need to evolve to meet the demands of today's market. That means rethinking how we do things, from our customer service to our internal culture." There were a few nods around the table, though some of the managers still looked uncertain. Vanessa decided to address the elephant in the room. "Let's talk about Richard Adams," she said, her tone direct. "I know that he was a respected figure here, and his departure was sudden. But I want to be clear, his management style and approach to customer service were no longer in line with the values we want to uphold. Moving forward, we will be focusing on inclusivity, respect, and excellence in all aspects of our operations." One of the managers, a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and a tailored suit, spoke up. Ms. Taylor, I appreciate your vision for the store, but change can be difficult, especially for a team that has been used to a certain way of doing things for so long. How do you plan to implement these changes without disrupting the workflow? Vanessa met the woman's gaze, appreciating her willingness to address the challenge head on. That's a valid concern, Mrs. Chen, she replied. Change is never easy, but it's necessary if we want to grow. My approach will be gradual but decisive. We'll start by setting clear expectations and providing the necessary training to support these changes. I'll be working closely with each of you to ensure a smooth transition. Ms. Chen nodded thoughtfully, her expression more receptive. Another manager, a younger man with dark hair and a cautious expression, raised his hand. What about our regular customers? He asked. They've come to expect a certain level of exclusivity and personalized service. Won't these changes alienate them? Vanessa shook her head. Our goal is not to alienate our loyal customers, Mr. Martinez. In fact, we want to enhance their experience by creating a more welcoming environment for everyone. High-end service doesn't have to come at the expense of inclusivity. We can maintain our standards of luxury while also being open and respectful to all customers, regardless of their background. Mr. Martinez nodded, seeming more reassured. Vanessa could see the shift in the room, a gradual acceptance of her ideas, though there was still a way to go. I understand that this will be an adjustment, Vanessa continued, but I'm confident that we can make La Belle Maison an even more successful and respected brand by embracing these changes. I'm counting on each of you to help lead the way. Lisa stepped forward, handing out copies of the new customer service guidelines Vanessa had developed. These are the updated guidelines for interacting with customers, she explained. They emphasize respect, attentiveness, and a focus on meeting the needs of every individual who walks through our doors. The manager skimmed through the documents, and Vanessa could see them absorbing the information. Some nodded in agreement, while others appeared more thoughtful. Vanessa knew that it would take time for these changes to take root, but she was prepared for the challenge. She needed her team to not just understand the new direction, but to believe in it, to see it as a way to elevate the store to new heights. Before we wrap up, Vanessa said, I'd like to open the floor to any questions or concerns you might have. This is a collaborative process, and I want to ensure that everyone feels heard. For a moment, there was silence as the managers exchanged glances, considering her offer. Then one by one, they began to speak up, asking questions about the new policies, expressing concerns about the transition, and offering suggestions on how to improve customer service. Vanessa listened intently, addressing each point with patience and clarity. She made it clear that she valued their input and that she was committed to making this transition as smooth as possible. Gradually, she could sense the tension in the room easing, replaced by a cautious optimism. After the meeting, Vanessa lingered in the conference room, speaking individually with some of the managers who had more specific concerns. By the time she returned to her office, she felt a sense of accomplishment. The first step had been taken, and though there was still much to do, she was confident that they were on the right path. Later that day, Vanessa made a point to walk through the store, observing the staff as they interacted with customers. She watched as a sales associate assisted an older woman with selecting a scarf, her tone warm and respectful. In the accessories department, a young man was carefully helping a customer choose a handbag, explaining the features with genuine enthusiasm. Vanessa smiled to herself. It was a small start, but it was a start nonetheless. She knew that there would be challenges ahead, resistance from some, skepticism from others, but she was ready for it. She had made a promise to herself, and she intended to see it through. As she returned to her office, Vanessa's phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Meeting with HR scheduled for tomorrow. Ready to discuss the hiring process? Vanessa quickly typed back a reply. Absolutely. Let's make it count. She placed her phone on the desk and leaned back in her chair, gazing out the window at the city skyline. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the buildings. Vanessa knew that this was only the beginning, but she felt a sense of purpose that drove her forward. The changes were in motion, and soon, La Belle Maison would be a place where everyone, regardless of who they were or where they came from, would be welcomed with open arms. It would be a place where dignity, respect, and excellence were not just ideals, but the very foundation of the store's identity. And Vanessa was going to make sure of it. Vanessa arrived at La Belle Maison earlier than usual. the morning air still crisp as she made her way through the quiet streets. The store's elegant facade loomed ahead, its grand entrance bathed in the soft light of dawn. Today was the official start of her new policies, and she wanted to be there before the staff arrived. She needed to feel the store, to walk its floors and absorb the atmosphere before the day's activities began. She unlocked the front door and stepped inside, the familiar scent of luxury greeting her. The store was silent, almost reverent in its stillness. Vanessa paused for a moment, taking in the space that she was determined to transform. The soft glow of the crystal chandeliers, the polished marble floors, and the artfully arranged displays. It was all as pristine as ever. But soon it would be more than just a symbol of wealth. It would be a symbol of change. She made her way to the office where Lisa was already waiting, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. "Good morning," Lisa greeted her, a slight smile on her lips. "Good morning," Vanessa replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. She took a sip, savoring the warmth before setting the cup down on her desk. "Are we ready for today?" Lisa nodded, her expression confident. "Everything is in place. The new customer service policies have been distributed to all departments, and I've scheduled brief refresher sessions for the staff throughout the day to reinforce them. HR is prepared for the hiring process, and I have lined up a few promising candidates for interviews later this week." "Perfect," Vanessa said, glancing at the clock. "The staff will be arriving soon. Let's head to the main floor. I want to be there when they start." Together, they made their way back to the showroom. The store's grandeur was even more striking in the early morning light, the display cases glimmering under the chandeliers. As Vanessa and Lisa reached the main floor, they could hear the faint sounds of the staff arriving, the click of heels on marble, the murmur of voices as they prepared for the day ahead. Vanessa stood near the entrance, watching as the employees began to filter in. Some greeted her with polite nods, others with cautious smiles. She could see the curiosity in their eyes, the unspoken questions. They knew changes were coming, but the extent of those changes was still a mystery to many of them. As the last of the staff arrived, Vanessa stepped forward, drawing their attention. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice carrying across the showroom. "Thank you for being here on time. As you know, today marks the beginning of a new chapter for La Belle Maison. We've talked about the changes in our customer service approach, and now it's time to put those changes into action." The staff listened intently, their expressions a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Vanessa could sense their uncertainty, and she wanted to address it head-on. "I understand that change can be challenging," she continued, her tone reassuring, "but I want you all to know that these changes are meant to improve not only the customer experience, but also your experience as employees. We're building a culture of respect, inclusivity, and excellence. This store will not just be a place to work, it will be a place where you can take pride in what you do." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I'll be on the floor today, observing and assisting where needed. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to speak with me or with Lisa. We're here to support you through this transition." The staff nodded, some exchanging glances with each other. Vanessa could see the gears turning in their minds as they processed what she had said. She knew that winning their full support would take time, but she was willing to put in the effort. "Let's make today a great start," Vanessa concluded, offering them a warm smile. "Thank you for your dedication and hard work. I'm confident that together we can make La Belle Maison a place that truly shines." With that, the staff began to disperse, heading to their respective departments. Vanessa watched them go, her mind already turning to the tasks ahead. Lisa remained by her side, her expression thoughtful. "You handled that well," Lisa remarked. "I think they're starting to see the bigger picture." "I hope so," Vanessa replied, her gaze still on the departing employees. "But actions speak louder than words. They need to see that these changes are real and that they're for the better." As the day progressed, Vanessa made good on her promise to be present on the floor. She moved through the store, observing the staff as they interacted with customers, offering guidance when needed, and stepping in to assist with any challenges that arose. In the fashion department, Vanessa noticed a young sales associate named Claire assisting a customer who appeared uncertain about a dress. Vanessa approached, listening to their conversation. "I'm not sure if this color suits me," the customer said, holding the dress up to her chest. "I usually go for something darker." Claire smiled warmly. "I think the color looks beautiful on you, but if you're unsure, I'd be happy to show you a few other options. We have some stunning pieces in darker tones that might be more to your taste. Vanessa watched as Claire expertly guided the customer to another rack, offering suggestions and making sure she felt comfortable. It was a small interaction, but it encapsulated the kind of service Vanessa wanted to see more of: attentive, personalized, and above all, respectful. "Claire," Vanessa said as the customer walked away with her new selection, "you handled that beautifully." "Thank you." Claire looked surprised by the compliment but quickly smiled. "Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I'm just trying to make sure our customers leave happy." "You're doing exactly what we need," Vanessa replied. "Keep up the good work." As the day went on, Vanessa continued to make her rounds, her presence a reminder that the new leadership was both attentive and involved. She checked in with each department, offering feedback and encouragement where needed. The staff responded positively, some even going out of their way to ask for her opinion or advice. By mid-afternoon, Vanessa found herself in the accessories department, where a small commotion had drawn her attention. A customer, a young black woman in her late 20s, was in a heated discussion with a sales associate. Vanessa quickly approached, sensing the tension in the air. "Is there a problem here?" Vanessa asked, her tone calm but authoritative. The sales associate, a middle-aged woman with a stern expression, looked flustered. "This customer is insisting on returning an item without a receipt," she explained, her tone defensive. "I told her it's against store policy." Vanessa turned to the customer, who was holding a designer handbag. "Could you tell me what happened?" she asked gently. The customer sighed, her frustration evident. "I bought this bag here a week ago, but the stitching is already coming undone. I didn't think to keep the receipt, but I know I bought it here. I just wanted to exchange it for a different one." Vanessa glanced at the handbag, noting the frayed stitching. It was clearly a defect, and the customer's frustration was understandable. Vanessa knew this was exactly the kind of situation where the new approach to customer service needed to be applied. "I'm sorry to hear that the bag is defective," Vanessa said, her tone empathetic. "Let me see what we can do to make this right." She turned to the sales associate, her expression firm. "I understand that our policy requires a receipt for returns, but in this case, the customer clearly has a valid issue with the product. Please help her find a replacement bag that she's happy with." The sales associate hesitated, but Vanessa's steady gaze left no room for argument. "Of course, Miss Taylor," she finally said, her tone subdued. "I'll take care of it right away." Vanessa nodded, then turned back to the customer. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We want to make sure you are completely satisfied with your purchase." The customer's expression softened, and she offered Vanessa a grateful smile. "Thank you. I really appreciate it." As the customer followed the sales associate to choose a new bag, Vanessa felt a sense of satisfaction. This was exactly the kind of change she wanted to see: an emphasis on understanding and resolving customer concerns rather than rigidly adhering to rules. By the end of the day, Vanessa returned to her office feeling a mix of exhaustion and accomplishment. The first day under her new policies had been challenging, but it had also been rewarding. She could see the difference already, in both the staff's attitudes and the customers' experiences. Lisa entered the office, a pleased look on her face. "I think today went well," she said. "The staff are adjusting and the customers seem happy. We had a few hiccups, but nothing we couldn't handle." Vanessa nodded, leaning back in her chair. "It's a start," she said, her tone thoughtful. "But we need to keep building on this. Every day is going to be a test, and we need to pass it every time." "We will," Lisa assured her. "With you leading, I'm confident we can make this work." Vanessa smiled, though the weight of responsibility still pressed on her. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but she also knew that she was up to the challenge. She had taken the first steps toward transforming La Belle Maison, and she was determined to see it through. As the evening light began to fade, Vanessa sat in her office reflecting on the day's events. The changes she had implemented were just the beginning, but they were already starting to take root. She knew that it would take time, patience, and unwavering commitment to fully realize her vision, but she was ready for it. For Vanessa, this was more than just a business venture. It was a mission to create a space where every customer felt valued, where every employee felt respected, and where excellence was not just expected, but embodied in every interaction. And she would not rest until that mission was accomplished. Vanessa had just settled into her office the next morning when her phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "We've got a situation on the floor. I think you should come down." Vanessa's stomach tightened. She'd anticipated challenges, but she hadn't expected something to come up so soon. She quickly grabbed her tablet and headed to the showroom. As she approached the main floor, she could hear raised voices. A group of customers had gathered near the jewelry section, their faces a mix of frustration and impatience. Vanessa immediately spotted Lisa standing off to the side, talking with a young woman in a sleek black suit. It was Emily, the department manager for jewelry, and she looked visibly distressed. "What's going on?" Vanessa asked, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. Emily turned to her, relief washing over her face. "One of our regular customers, Mrs. Whitfield, is upset because the necklace she pre-ordered hasn't arrived. She's been waiting for over a month, and when we tried to explain that there was a delay due to a supplier issue, she became irate." Vanessa nodded, taking in the scene. Mrs. Whitfield, a middle-aged woman dressed in an expensive coat and designer heels, was standing with her arms crossed, her expression livid. A sales associate, looking pale and anxious, was trying to placate her, but it was clear that the situation was escalating. "I'll handle it," Vanessa said, her voice steady. She walked over to Mrs. Whitfield, her posture confident but approachable. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitfield," Vanessa began, her tone respectful but firm. "I'm Vanessa Taylor, the new owner of La Belle Maison. I'm sorry to hear that you've had an unpleasant experience. Let's see how we can make this right." Mrs. Whitfield turned her sharp gaze on Vanessa, her eyes narrowing. "Are you the one responsible for this mess? I've been shopping here for years and I've never had such terrible service. I ordered that necklace over a month ago, and now you're telling me it's not even here?" Vanessa remained calm, nodding as Mrs. Whitfield vented her frustrations. "I completely understand your frustration, Mrs. Whitfield. You're right to expect better service from us, and I apologize for the delay. I've looked into the issue, and it seems there was a problem with our supplier, which caused the shipment to be delayed. I know that's not your concern, but I want to assure you that we're doing everything we can to expedite the process." Mrs. Whitfield's glare softened slightly, but she wasn't fully appeased. "I don't care about your supplier issues. I care about the fact that I don't have my necklace. It was supposed to be a gift for my daughter's birthday, and now I'm empty-handed." Vanessa nodded, acknowledging the seriousness of the situation. "I understand how important this is to you, and I want to make it right. Here's what I can do. We have a similar necklace in stock, and I'd be happy to offer it to you at no additional charge as a temporary replacement while we wait for your original order to arrive. You can keep it or return it once the other necklace arrives, whichever you prefer." Mrs. Whitfield hesitated, considering the offer. Vanessa could see the conflict in her eyes. She was still upset, but the gesture had clearly made an impact. "Additionally," Vanessa continued, "I'll personally oversee the status of your original order and ensure that it arrives as quickly as possible. I'll also arrange for complimentary delivery to your home, so you won't need to make another trip to the store. Your time is valuable, and we want to make sure you're satisfied." There was a long pause as Mrs. Whitfield weighed Vanessa's words. Finally, she sighed, her anger dissipating. "Fine," she said, her tone less harsh. "I'll take the replacement for now, but you'd better make sure the original necklace arrives soon." "Thank you, Mrs. Whitfield," Vanessa replied, offering her a sincere smile. "I appreciate your understanding, and I'll make sure you are kept informed of the status. Emily here will assist you with selecting the replacement." Emily stepped forward, her relief evident as she guided Mrs. Whitfield to the display case where the replacement necklace was kept. As they walked away, the tension in the room began to dissipate, and the other customers returned to their browsing. Lisa approached Vanessa, her expression a mix of admiration and curiosity. "You handled that well," she said quietly. "Mrs. Whitfield can be a real handful." Vanessa nodded, though she felt the weight of the interaction settle on her shoulders. "It's part of the job," she replied, her tone thoughtful. "But it's also a reminder that we can't afford to let our guard down. Every customer, especially our regulars, expects the best from us, and we need to deliver." "Do you think she'll be satisfied?" Lisa asked, glancing at Mrs. Whitfield, who was now examining the replacement necklace. "I hope so," Vanessa said, watching as Emily continued to assist Mrs. Whitfield with a calm and professional demeanor. "But even if she is, this won't be the last time we face a situation like this. We need to be prepared." Lisa nodded in agreement. "I'll make sure the staff is briefed on how to handle similar issues in the future." "Good," Vanessa replied. "And let's keep a close eye on any pending orders. We need to be proactive, not reactive. If there are delays, we should inform the customers before they come to us with complaints. As the day continued, Vanessa remained on the floor, keenly observing the interactions between the staff and the customers. She was pleased to see that most of the customers were having positive experiences, but she also noted a few areas where improvements could be made. In the men's fashion department, a young associate seemed hesitant when dealing with a customer who was browsing high-end suits. The associate was clearly nervous, stumbling over his words as he tried to explain the differences between the various styles. Vanessa approached, deciding to intervene. "Good afternoon," she greeted the customer, a tall man in his 30s who was dressed in a sharp business suit. "Is there anything I can help you with today?" The customer turned to her, his expression polite but guarded. "I'm looking for a suit for an upcoming event," he said. "Something formal, but not too flashy." Vanessa nodded, glancing at the racks of suits. "We have a few options that might suit your needs. May I suggest something from our new collection? It's elegant and understated, perfect for a formal event without being over the top." The customer seemed intrigued, and Vanessa guided him to the section where the new collection was displayed. She quickly selected a few suits, describing the features of each one with confidence. The young associate, who had been watching closely, stepped forward. "Would you like to try any of these on, sir?" he asked, his voice steadier now that Vanessa had set the tone. The customer nodded, and Vanessa handed the suits to the associate, who led the man to the fitting room. As they walked away, Vanessa felt a sense of satisfaction. It was a small victory, but an important one. The associate had needed guidance, and now he seemed more confident in his role. Vanessa continued her rounds, checking in with the staff and offering assistance where needed. By the end of the day, she felt a mix of exhaustion and accomplishment. The day had been challenging, but it had also been a reminder of why she was here, to ensure that La Belle Maison lived up to its reputation, and more importantly, to her vision. As the store closed for the evening, Vanessa returned to her office, where Lisa was waiting with a stack of reports. "We had a few hiccups today," Lisa said as she handed the reports to Vanessa. "But overall, I think it went well. The staff is starting to adapt to the new policies, and I've seen a noticeable improvement in customer interactions." Vanessa glanced through the reports, nodding in approval. "Good. Let's keep up the momentum. We're making progress, but we need to stay vigilant. There's still a lot of work to be done." Lisa smiled, her confidence in Vanessa clear. "We'll get there. One step at a time." Vanessa leaned back in her chair, feeling the fatigue of the day catching up with her. But beneath the exhaustion, there was a sense of determination. She was more committed than ever to making La Belle Maison a place where excellence wasn't just a goal, but a reality. As she prepared to leave for the night, Vanessa's thoughts drifted to the future. There would be more challenges ahead, she knew that, but she was ready for them. She had the vision, the team, and the resolve to see it through. And with every step forward, she was bringing La Belle Maison closer to becoming the store she had always envisioned, a place where every customer felt valued, every employee felt empowered, and every interaction was a testament to the store's commitment to excellence. Vanessa stood at the front of the staff room, her gaze sweeping across the assembled employees. The room buzzed with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Word had spread quickly about the changes Vanessa had already made, and everyone knew that today's meeting was about something big. "Thank you all for coming in early this morning," Vanessa began, her voice steady and clear. "I know change can be difficult, but I believe that what we're about to discuss will not only improve our work environment, but also elevate the experience we provide to our customers." There were a few murmurs of agreement, though some employees still looked skeptical. Vanessa had expected this. She knew that not everyone was going to embrace the changes with open arms, but she was determined to win them over. "Over the past few weeks, I've spent a lot of time observing how we operate as a team," Vanessa continued. "I've spoken with many of you individually, and I've listened to your concerns. Based on what I've learned, I've developed a set of new policies that I believe will help us move forward together." Vanessa clicked a button on her tablet, and a projector screen behind her lit up with the first slide of a presentation titled "Elevating Excellence: New Standards for La Belle Maison." The title alone drew the attention of the room, with a few employees leaning forward, eager to see what was coming next. "The first policy we're implementing is focused on customer engagement," Vanessa said, gesturing to the screen where bullet points began to appear. "From now on, every customer who enters our store should be greeted within 30 seconds. I want us to be proactive, not reactive. This means approaching customers with a warm, genuine welcome and offering assistance before they need to ask for it. A hand shot up from the back of the room. Jeremy, a seasoned associate in the men's department. What if the customer just wants to browse on their own? We've had some people complain that they feel pressured when we approach them too quickly. Vanessa nodded, acknowledging the point. That's a valid concern, Jeremy. The key here is to strike a balance. We want to make sure the customer feels acknowledged and valued, but we also need to be attuned to their comfort level. A simple greeting like, "Welcome to La Belle Maison. If you need any assistance, I'm here to help," allows us to offer support without being intrusive. It's about creating an atmosphere of attentiveness rather than pressure. Jeremy nodded thoughtfully, and Vanessa continued. The second policy involves the way we handle customer complaints. I know this can be one of the more challenging aspects of our jobs, but it's also one of the most crucial. From today, any complaint should be addressed within 5 minutes. If the issue can't be resolved immediately, we need to ensure that the customer is kept informed of the steps we're taking and given a clear timeline for when they can expect a resolution. Vanessa noticed a few more nods of agreement in the room. This was an area where many employees had struggled, and the new policy provided clear guidelines to follow. Additionally, Vanessa said, moving to the next slide, we're introducing a new customer feedback system. After each purchase, customers will receive an email asking them to rate their experience. This feedback will be crucial in helping us identify areas where we need to improve, as well as recognizing the hard work of those who consistently go above and beyond. There was a ripple of excitement at this announcement. Several employees exchanged glances, clearly intrigued by the idea of direct feedback from customers. And let's not forget, Vanessa added, we'll be celebrating the positive feedback. Employees who receive high praise from customers will be recognized and rewarded. This isn't just about pointing out what needs to change. It's also about acknowledging what we're doing right. Vanessa could see the shift in the room. The initial apprehension was giving way to a sense of possibility. People were starting to see that these changes weren't just about making their jobs harder. They were about making the entire store better. The next policy I want to discuss is about teamwork, Vanessa said, bringing up the next slide. We're going to start holding weekly team meetings where each department will have the opportunity to share updates, challenges, and successes. This will help us stay connected as a team and ensure that everyone is on the same page. Communication is key to our success, and these meetings will be an essential part of that. Vanessa paused, letting the importance of her words sink in. She knew that communication had been a weak point in the past, and she wanted to make it clear that this was going to change. To support this, she continued, we're also rolling out a new internal messaging system that will allow for easier communication between departments. If you need to coordinate with another team member or manager, you'll be able to do so quickly and efficiently without waiting for a scheduled meeting. A few more hands went up, and Vanessa spent the next several minutes answering questions, clarifying details, and addressing concerns. The energy in the room was shifting, becoming more collaborative. Finally, Vanessa reached the last slide of the presentation. The final point I want to cover today is about our commitment to inclusivity and respect. La Belle Maison is a place where every customer and every employee should feel valued and respected. Moving forward, we'll be conducting regular training sessions focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. These sessions will not only help us better understand and serve our diverse customer base, but also ensure that we're fostering a positive work environment for everyone. The room was silent for a moment as Vanessa's words hung in the air. Then slowly there was a ripple of applause, starting with Lisa and spreading throughout the room. Vanessa felt a swell of pride as she watched her team come together, united by a shared commitment to excellence. Thank you all for your attention and your openness to these new policies, Vanessa said, her voice warm with sincerity. I know this is a lot to take in and change can be challenging, but I believe in each and every one of you. Together, we can make La Belle Maison not just a store, but a place where people feel truly valued, both our customers and ourselves. As the meeting concluded, the employees began to file out of the room, talking quietly among themselves. Vanessa stayed behind, gathering her notes and reflecting on the meeting. She knew that implementing these changes would take time and effort, but she felt confident that she had laid a strong foundation. Lisa lingered by the door, waiting until the last employee had left before approaching Vanessa. That was impressive, she said, her tone filled with admiration. I could see the wheels turning in their heads. They're starting to get it. Vanessa smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It's a start. Now comes the hard part, making sure it all sticks. I'm with you, Lisa replied, her voice resolute. We've got a good team here, and I think they're ready for this. Vanessa nodded, grateful for Lisa's support. We'll take it one day at a time, but I believe we're on the right track. As they walked out of the staff room together, Vanessa felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead might be challenging, but she was ready to face it with determination and confidence. She was transforming La Belle Maison, one step at a time, into the store she had always envisioned, a place where excellence was not just expected, but embraced by everyone who walked through its doors. The day started like any other, with Vanessa arriving at the store early to review the overnight sales reports and prepare for another day of implementing her new policies. She was settling into her routine when Lisa knocked on her office door, looking uncharacteristically tense. Vanessa, there's someone here to see you, Lisa said, her voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. Vanessa glanced up from her computer, noting the unusual expression on Lisa's face. Who is it? Lisa hesitated, then stepped aside to reveal a tall, impeccably dressed woman standing in the doorway. She had a commanding presence, with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing, and a perfectly styled appearance that spoke of wealth and power. It's Sylvia Langford, Lisa said quietly, her tone almost reverent. Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. Sylvia Langford was a name known to anyone in the luxury retail business. She was a powerful figure in the fashion industry, with a reputation for being both shrewd and influential. The fact that she had shown up unannounced at La Belle Maison was both unexpected and potentially significant. Vanessa quickly rose from her desk, extending a hand in greeting. Miss Langford, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Vanessa Taylor. Sylvia Langford took Vanessa's hand, her grip firm but not overpowering. Ms. Taylor, she said, her voice smooth and measured, I've heard quite a bit about you lately. You've certainly been making waves in the industry. Vanessa felt a mixture of pride and wariness at Sylvia's words. I appreciate that, Ms. Langford. I'm just trying to make La Belle Maison the best it can be. Sylvia smiled, though there was something enigmatic about it. Indeed, that's precisely why I'm here. May we speak privately? Vanessa nodded, gesturing for Sylvia to take a seat in her office. As Sylvia sat down, Vanessa noticed how she took in the room with a quick, assessing glance, as if cataloging every detail. Vanessa felt a surge of nerves but quickly pushed them aside, reminding herself that she had nothing to hide. Once they were seated, Vanessa folded her hands on her desk, meeting Sylvia's gaze directly. What can I do for you, Miss Langford? Sylvia leaned back slightly, crossing one leg over the other in a relaxed but deliberate manner. I've been following your progress here at La Belle Maison with great interest. It's not every day that someone buys out a luxury brand and immediately starts making such significant changes. Vanessa nodded, waiting for Sylvia to continue. She knew there was more to this visit than just idle curiosity. You've been very bold, Sylvia said, her tone neither approving nor disapproving, merely stating a fact. But boldness can be a double-edged sword in this business. It can lead to great success, or it can alienate those who've built their lives around certain traditions. Vanessa considered her words carefully before responding. I understand that, Ms. Langford. But I believe that in order to thrive, we need to evolve. The luxury market is changing, and customers are expecting more than just high-end products. They want an experience that aligns with their values. Sylvia's expression remained unreadable, though her eyes narrowed slightly in contemplation. You're right, of course. The market is shifting, and those who can't adapt will be left behind. But there's a delicate balance to maintain. Too much change too quickly, and you risk losing the very foundation upon which this brand was built. Vanessa appreciated Sylvia's candor, even if it came with a veiled warning. I'm aware of the risks, but I believe in the vision I have for La Belle Maison. I'm not looking to destroy what made this store special. I'm looking to enhance it, to bring it into a new era where it can continue to thrive. Sylvia studied her for a long moment, and Vanessa felt as though she were being weighed and measured. Finally, Sylvia nodded as if reaching a conclusion. You have a clear vision, Ms. Taylor, and I respect that. But let me offer you some advice. There are those in this industry who won't take kindly to what you're doing. They'll see it as a threat to the status quo, and they'll do everything in their power to undermine you. Vanessa's heart beat faster at the implication, but she kept her expression neutral. I appreciate the warning, Miss Langford. I'm not naive about the challenges I'm facing, but I'm committed to this and I won't be deterred. Sylvia smiled again, though this time it was warmer, almost approving. Good, that's exactly the attitude you'll need. But remember, success in this industry isn't just about vision. It's about alliances. Choose your partners wisely, and you'll find the road ahead much smoother. Vanessa nodded, taking in the advice. Thank you, Miss Langford. I'll keep that in mind. Sylvia rose gracefully from her chair, smoothing down her skirt with practiced ease. I'll be watching your progress closely, Mrs. Taylor. La Belle Maison has a legacy that many of us care about deeply. I hope to see it flourish under your leadership. Vanessa stood as well, extending her hand once more. Thank you, Ms. Langford. I'm honored by your visit, and I hope to live up to the trust that the customers and the industry have placed in me. Sylvia shook her hand, then turned to leave, pausing at the door. One last thing, Miss Taylor, she said, glancing back. Never underestimate the power of perception. How you're seen by others in this industry can be just as important as what you actually do. With that, she exited the office, leaving Vanessa to contemplate her words. As the door closed behind Sylvia, Vanessa let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She felt a mixture of relief and resolve. The visit had been unexpected, but it had also been a reminder of the stakes involved in her mission to transform La Belle Maison. Lisa re-entered the office, looking curious. That was intense, she said, her tone a mix of admiration and concern. What did she want? Vanessa leaned against her desk, considering how much to share. She wanted to see what I'm doing here firsthand. I think she's curious about where La Belle Maison is headed. And, Lisa prompted, clearly eager to hear more. Vanessa smiled, though there was a hint of steel in her expression. She gave me some advice, which I intend to take seriously, but more than anything, it was a reminder that we're playing in the big leagues now. Every move we make is being watched, and there are people out there who won't hesitate to challenge us. Lisa nodded slowly, absorbing the gravity of Vanessa's words. Are you worried? Vanessa shook her head, her resolve hardening. No, if anything, I'm more determined than ever. We're on the right path, and I'm not about to back down now. Lisa smiled, her confidence in Vanessa clear. Then let's keep pushing forward. Vanessa returned the smile, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, both expected and unforeseen. But she also knew that she had the strength, the vision, and the team to overcome them. As she prepared to dive back into her work, Vanessa felt a deep sense of clarity. Sylvia Langford's visit had been a test, a subtle way of gauging Vanessa's resolve, and Vanessa knew, without a doubt, that she had passed. She was ready for whatever came next, and she was determined to see La Belle Maison rise to new heights, no matter what obstacles lay in her path. Vanessa stepped through the doors of La Belle Maison with a deep breath, feeling a subtle shift in the air. It was the grand reopening day, and the store sparkled like a gem, a beacon of luxury and refinement. Every inch had been carefully curated, from the displays to the lighting, and the atmosphere now exuded warmth, elegance, and approachability. Everything Vanessa had envisioned from the very start. Lisa stood by the front, clipboard in hand, coordinating the last-minute details with the staff. She spotted Vanessa and flashed her a bright smile. It's all coming together, she said, her voice filled with pride. The new La Belle Maison. Vanessa nodded, taking it all in. She felt a sense of accomplishment swelling in her chest. This moment had been months in the making, filled with challenges, resistance, and doubt, but also with triumphs, small victories, and breakthroughs. Today, all of that hard work was being unveiled to the world. Everything looks perfect, Vanessa said, joining Lisa by the entrance. But today is about more than just the aesthetics. It's about how we make people feel the moment they walk through that door. Lisa nodded in agreement. Our team is ready. They've embraced the new training, and I think they're just as excited as we are. Vanessa smiled. The changes had been difficult at first, but now the staff was aligned with her vision. She'd seen the transformation in their attitudes and how they interacted with customers. They no longer just sold products, they created an experience. And that was what set La Belle Maison apart. As the first customers began trickling in, Vanessa's heart raced with anticipation. She watched from a distance as her staff greeted them warmly, offering assistance with genuine smiles and a welcoming tone. The customers responded positively, impressed by the elevated service and the inviting atmosphere. Vanessa felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Jeremy, looking sharp in his tailored suit. I have to say, Vanessa, I didn't think we'd get here. But we did. You were right about all of it. Vanessa chuckled softly, relieved to hear the words. Jeremy had been one of her biggest skeptics at the start, but now his admiration was evident. I appreciate that, Jeremy. But it wasn't just me. It was all of us. We did this together. Jeremy nodded. I've been in this business a part time, and I've never seen anything like this. The energy feels different, better. People are talking, good things. Vanessa smiled at that. That's the goal. We're not just selling luxury, we're creating a place where everyone feels like they belong. It's about respect, inclusivity, and making sure that when someone walks in here, they feel valued. The morning passed smoothly, with customers steadily flowing in and out. Many left with their hands full of luxury bags and smiles on their faces. There was a palpable sense of renewal, not just in the store's appearance, but in its very essence. Vanessa could feel it. La Belle Maison was no longer just a high-end store. It was a symbol of what luxury could be: accessible, welcoming, and inclusive. As the afternoon sun filtered through the store's tall windows, Vanessa noticed a familiar figure entering the shop: Sylvia Langford. Her presence was unannounced once again, but Vanessa had expected she might appear today. After their previous meeting, she had known that Sylvia would be watching closely. Vanessa approached Sylvia with a confident smile. "Miss Langford, welcome. I'm glad you could make it today." Sylvia turned, her eyes scanning the store with a critical gaze, though there was a glimmer of something else: approval. "Ms. Taylor," she said smoothly, "I see you've been busy. The store looks remarkable." "Thank you," Vanessa replied, standing tall. "It's been quite the journey, but I'm proud of where we've arrived." Sylvia nodded slowly, her expression softening. "I've spoken with a few people in the industry. Your name is becoming quite well known. People are impressed by what you've done here." Vanessa took the compliment in stride, her heart swelling with pride. "That's good to hear, but there's still so much more to do. This is just the beginning." Sylvia's lips curled into a small smile. "You've managed to do something most people thought impossible. You've modernized a luxury brand without losing its essence. That's no easy feat." Vanessa appreciated the acknowledgement. She knew it wasn't just about changing the store. It was about preserving its history while also ensuring it could thrive in the future. That had been the delicate balance she had aimed to strike. As Sylvia continued to observe the store, she glanced toward the staff, who were assisting customers with a sense of ease and professionalism that had taken months to cultivate. "I must say," Sylvia remarked, "the energy here is different from before. The staff seems more engaged." "That was a priority," Vanessa explained. "We've made a lot of changes, not just in how we operate, but in how we treat one another. The culture here is different now, and it shows." Sylvia looked thoughtful for a moment before turning her gaze back to Vanessa. "You've exceeded my expectations, Miss Taylor. I admit when we first met, I wasn't sure if you would succeed in the way you envisioned it, but now I see that you have. You've built something remarkable." Vanessa felt a wave of relief and satisfaction at Sylvia's words. It wasn't just about proving Sylvia wrong. It was about knowing that the work she had done had truly made a difference. La Belle Maison was a better place now for both the staff and the customers. As the day wore on, the success of the reopening became undeniable. The store buzzed with activity, and Vanessa felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had taken on this enormous challenge and turned it into an opportunity, not just for herself, but for everyone who walked through those doors. Later that evening, after the last customer had left and the staff began to clean up, Vanessa stood in the middle of the store, looking around at the space that had transformed so much. Lisa walked up beside her, exhaustion mingling with pride on her face. "We did it," Lisa said quietly. Vanessa smiled, her heart full. "Yes, we did." The two women stood in silence for a moment, soaking in the success of the day. It wasn't just about the sales or the positive feedback from customers. It was about what they had built together. La Belle Maison wasn't just a store anymore. It was a statement of what was possible when you refused to accept the status quo and push for something better. As Vanessa walked through the empty aisles, her steps echoing in the quiet store, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was the culmination of months of hard work, vision, and perseverance. But more than that, it was the beginning of something new. A future where La Belle Maison would continue to thrive, not because of its legacy, but because of the people who made it what it was. Vanessa knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. She had built a foundation that was strong, and now it was time to continue growing. La Belle Maison had been reborn, and with it, Vanessa's purpose had been solidified. As she turned off the lights and walked out the front doors, locking them behind her, Vanessa couldn't help but smile. The sun had long since set, but a new dawn had already begun. And this was only the beginning.